The emergency protocols were designed to handle invasion fleets, quantum anomalies, and diplomatic incidents that could shatter reality itself. They were not designed to handle one human raising her hand. The Galactic Council's 847th routine biological survey had been going perfectly. Mind-numbingly, bureaucratically perfect. Ambassador Zethkri was 3 minutes into his presentation on the reproductive cycles of Andromedan moss when Dr. Maya Rodriguez politely cleared her throat and asked a single question that would rewrite the fundamental laws of galactic civilization. "Technical difficulties," announced the moderator, a six-armed Quellan who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "We'll continue with the next item while maintenance—" "Actually," said the human delegate, raising one hand casually, "I can fix that." The room went quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, the kind where everyone suddenly remembers they're in a metal box floating through space with someone they don't really know. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, Earth's first and only representative to the Galactic Council, stood up from her seat in the back row. She was average height, brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing what looked like a modified jumpsuit. Nothing threatening about her at all, which is exactly what made everyone nervous. "I just need to—" She walked over to the sparking device, pulled out what looked like a small multi-tool and did something that made it stop smoking. "There, good as new." The Quellan moderator's 4 eyes blinked independently. "Thank you, but maintenance protocols require—" "It's fine. I used to repair mining equipment on asteroids. This is basically the same thing, just smaller." Maya sat back down. "Sorry for the interruption." Ambassador Zethkri cleared his throat and continued his presentation. 17 minutes later, he reached the comparative biology section. "As we can see from the data," he droned, "most civilized worlds maintain a clear ecological hierarchy. Apex predators remain in their designated zones, prey species adapt accordingly, and balance is maintained through natural selection and environmental controls." A junior researcher from the vegan collective raised a tentacle. "What about worlds with multiple apex predators? How do they coexist?" "Territorial division, typically. Each species claims its ecological niche and rarely ventures outside it." Zethkri clicked to the next slide. "This brings us to our newest member world, Earth, located in the Sol system, 3rd planet from their star." The holographic display showed a blue-green marble spinning lazily in space. "Earth presents some unusual characteristics: high biodiversity, variable climate zones, and," he paused, consulting his notes, "an unusually high number of apex predators for a single biosphere." "How many?" asked someone from the back. "Approximately 17 documented species, depending on regional classification." A murmur went through the room. Most worlds had 1, maybe 2 apex predators. 3 was considered unstable. "But here's the fascinating part," Zethkri continued. "According to our preliminary surveys, these apex predators all coexist on the same land masses, sometimes in the same regions. There's no clear territorial division." "That's impossible," said the vegan researcher. "The ecological pressure alone would—" "Unless," interrupted a deep voice from the Krillian delegation. "They're all prey species." The room went dead silent. "Think about it," the Krillian continued. "If 17 species can coexist without territorial conflict, they must all be feeding on something else, something higher up the food chain." Every eye in the room turned to Maya Rodriguez. She was sitting perfectly still, but there was something in her expression, a tiny smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So," said the Quellan moderator slowly, "the question becomes, what exactly is Earth's apex predator?" Maya's smile got wider. "You're looking at it." The translation devices went haywire. Not from technical failure this time, from 60 different species trying to process the same word simultaneously. The Krillian delegate's combat implant started glowing. Someone in the Andromedan section made a sound like a kettle whistling. "I'm sorry," said the moderator. "Could you repeat that?" "Humans," Maya said, still smiling. "We're the apex predator, all of us." The room erupted. "That's biologically impossible. You're herbivores. Look at your teeth. Where are your claws? Your armor plating?" Maya stood up again, and the shouting died down. Not because she'd made any threatening gesture. She just stood there, hands at her sides, looking completely relaxed. "We don't need claws," she said conversationally. We make better ones. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her multi-tool. In the silence, the soft click of it opening sounded like a gunshot. We don't need armor. We make that too. We don't need to be faster than our prey. She folded the tool closed. We just need to be more persistent. The Krillian delegate's implants were glowing brighter. You're claiming your entire species consists of apex predators? Well, technically we're omnivores, but yes. 7 billion apex predators, give or take. But that's impossible? Yeah, we get that a lot. Maya sat back down. Anything else you'd like to know about Earth's ecosystem? The silence stretched for exactly 12 seconds. Then the fire alarms started going off. The fire alarms weren't the problem. The problem was that half the delegates had simultaneously activated their emergency beacon protocols. Please remain calm, the moderator announced over the blaring sirens. This is likely a false alarm triggered by elevated stress readings from the 7 billion, whispered the Andromedan delegate, his voice carrying despite the noise. 7 billion apex predators. On one planet, added someone from the Regalian Empire, in the same ecosystem. Sharing resources with 17 other apex predator species. Maya looked around the room as delegates huddled in their respective species groups, having rapid conversations in languages her translator couldn't process. She recognized the universal signs of panic, though. The rapid breathing, the defensive posturing, the way everyone kept glancing at her like she might suddenly sprout fangs. Look, she said, raising her voice over the alarms, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The room went quiet again. The alarms kept blaring. Humans aren't monsters, we're just competitive. And we're really good at making tools. What kind of tools? Asked the Krillian delegate. Maya considered this. What kind do you want to know about? Hunting tools. Oh, well, we started with pointy sticks. Then we figured out how to make the sticks fly really fast. Then we made them fly faster. Then we made them explosive. Then we made them nuclear. The Andromedan delegate made that whistling sound again. But that's just the basic stuff, Maya continued. We've got chemical tools, biological tools, psychological tools. We've got tools for making tools. We've got tools for making tools that make tools. Stop, said the moderator. Please, just stop. We made tools that think, Maya said anyway. Those are pretty neat. The Quellan moderator activated her emergency override. I'm calling a recess. All delegates will remain in their assigned quarters until further notice. Wait, said the Krillian delegate. What about the other apex predators, the 17 species? How do they coexist with humans? Maya blinked. Oh, they don't. They don't what? They don't coexist with us. We killed most of them. The silence was so complete that the fire alarms sounded like whispers. Not on purpose, Maya added quickly. Well, not usually. We mostly just took their food and their territory. The killing was more of a side effect. Side effect of what? Expansion? We spread across the entire planet in about 50,000 years. That's pretty fast for a biological species. 50,000 years is fast for planetary colonization. Yeah, most species take a few 100,000 years to cover a continent. We did 6 continents and all the major islands. The Andromedan delegate was making a sound like a deflating balloon. But here's the thing, Maya continued. We felt bad about it. So we started protecting the ones we hadn't killed yet. We got reserves and sanctuaries and breeding programs. We're really good at managing ecosystems once we put our minds to it. You're managing the other apex predators. Someone has to. They can't manage themselves. The Krillian delegate's implants were cycling through what looked like a spectrum of warning colors. What about your own population? 7 billion apex predators on one planet. How do you manage resource competition? Maya paused. We don't, really. We just make more resources. Make them? Sure, we've got agriculture, aquaculture, hydroponics, synthetic biology. We can make food out of sunlight and air if we need to. And if you can't make more resources, then we fight. Maya shrugged. But we're usually too busy making things to fight very much. Fighting is inefficient. Too busy making what? Everything. We make art, music, stories. We make machines that take us to other planets. We make machines that let us talk to other species across the galaxy. She gestured around the room. We make fusion reactors and faster-than-light drives and universal translation devices. You make all of that. Well, we learned how to make fusion reactors from you guys, but we've probably improved on the design by now. We're good at improving things. The room was so quiet that Maya could hear the soft hum of the life support systems. So, said the Quellen moderator very carefully, when you say humans are apex predators, I mean we're the most successful hunting species in Earth's history. We've got endurance, tool use, pattern recognition, cooperative strategies, and adaptive intelligence. We can hunt in any environment, any climate, any terrain. We can track prey across continents and across generations. What do you hunt? Maya smiled again. Whatever we want. The fire alarm suddenly seemed very loud. The emergency session convened in Conference Room 7, which hadn't been used since the Andromedans accidentally declared war on mathematics. Maya wasn't invited. She was sitting in the corridor outside, reading something on a small device, looking completely relaxed. Every delegate who walked past her to enter the conference room felt their survival instincts screaming. Inside, the atmosphere was somewhere between a war council and a therapy session. Let's review what we know, said the Quellen moderator, her four eyes scanning the assembled delegates. Earth, 7 billion apex predators, advanced tool-making capabilities, planetary colonization in 50,000 years, and a casual attitude towards species extinction. Don't forget the part about making tools that think, added the Andromedan delegate, and the nuclear weapons, said the Krillian, and the fact that they improve on our technology, and they can hunt whatever they want. The moderator's eyes blinked in sequence. This is why we have Emergency Protocol 7. Emergency Protocol 7 was simple. If a newly discovered species posed a potential threat to galactic stability, the Council would implement containment measures until a full threat assessment could be completed. It had never been used. The Council had been surveying species for 12,000 years, and they'd never encountered anything that qualified for Protocol 7. The question, said the Krillian delegate, is whether humans actually pose a threat or if they're just unusual. They killed 17 apex predator species, said the Andromedan. As a side effect of expansion, pointed out the vegan researcher, they have nuclear weapons. So do we. They have 7 billion individuals. The collective has trillions. Yes, but the collective individuals are specialists. Humans are all generalists. All apex predators are all tool makers. The room fell silent as everyone processed this. What exactly, asked the moderator, does that mean for the rest of us? The Krillian delegate consulted his tactical display. It means we're dealing with a species that has no natural ecological niche. They can adapt to any environment, exploit any resource, and compete with any other species for territory. But they seem peaceful enough, said the vegan researcher. They're sitting outside this room, reading while we discuss whether to quarantine their entire planet, said the Andromedan. That's not peaceful. That's confident. The moderator activated her secure channel. I'm requesting a priority consultation with the Strategic Assessment Division. What will you tell them? That we've found a species that treats planetary colonization as a hobby project and considers faster-than-light travel to be an improvement opportunity. The secure channel crackled to life. A voice that sounded like grinding metal spoke in the Council's ancient administrative language. Strategic Assessment Division. Nature of the threat? Potential Class 5 adaptive predator species, requesting immediate threat evaluation. Class 5? The voice sounded surprised. We haven't had a Class 5 alert in 4,000 years. Are you certain? They have 7 billion individuals, advanced tool-making capabilities, and they've achieved planetary dominance in 50,000 years. Confirmed. Initiating Protocol 7 containment measures. All contact with the species is suspended pending evaluation. The moderator looked around the room. All delegates are ordered to maintain minimum safe distance from the human representative until further notice. What's minimum safe distance? Asked the Andromedan. For a Class 5 adaptive predator? Different star system. Through the conference room's transparent walls, they could see Maya Rodriguez in the corridor. She'd finished reading and was now doing something that looked like organized stretching exercises. She's not even armed, whispered the vegan researcher. She doesn't need to be, said the Krillian delegate. She's a tool maker. Everything is a potential weapon. As if she'd heard them, Maya looked up and waved cheerfully at the conference room window. Every delegate in the room took a step backward. "I'm updating the threat assessment," announced the Krillian. "To what?" "Class 6. The room went dead silent. There was no Class 6. Class 5 was the highest threat level in the galactic classification system. "I'm recommending we create one," the Krillian continued, "for species that are so far outside normal parameters that standard containment protocols may not apply. What do you recommend?" "We ask them nicely to stay on their planet. And if they refuse?" The Krillian delegate looked out at Maya, who was now doing something that looked like a handstand against the wall. "Then we hope they're as reasonable as they seem." But that wasn't the shocking part. The Strategic Assessment Division's archive chamber looked like a tomb, which, considering what was about to be unearthed, was disturbingly appropriate. Commander Vexthul of the Quillian Imperial Guard stood before the massive data core, his combat implants casting eerie shadows on the walls. Beside him, Archive Keeper Mothdal worked frantically at the access terminals, his 6 arms moving in patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so desperate. "There," Mothdal whispered. "Classification level Omega. The Sol System files." Sol System. Vexthul's implants flickered, but humans just achieved faster than light travel. They're a new species. "That's what we told the Council." The holographic display materialized, showing a star chart dated 847 galactic standard years ago. The Sol System was highlighted in red, quarantine red. "First contact was 8 centuries ago," Mothdal continued, his voice barely audible. "A routine survey mission. The survey team reported a Class 2 civilization in early development. Stone tools, basic agriculture, tribal organization. Standard procedure? Should have been. But the survey team never returned." Vexthul's implants cycled through warning colors. "Equipment failure? We thought so. Sent a recovery team. They found the survey ship intact, orbiting the 3rd planet. The crew was..." Mostel paused, accessing deeper files. "The crew was alive, healthy, happy." Happy? They'd been living on the planet's surface for 3 months. They'd integrated with the local human tribes. They were teaching them metallurgy, agriculture, medicine. They refused to leave. That's impossible. Survey teams have neural conditioning against cultural contamination. The humans had convinced them that their conditioning was wrong, that their entire understanding of civilization was wrong, in 3 months. Vexthul stared at the display. "What happened to them?" "We sent a military extraction team, full combat gear, Class 5 neural shielding, orders to retrieve the survey team by force if necessary." "And?" "They joined the humans too." The archive chamber's environmental systems cycled, but the air still felt thick. "The humans didn't use weapons," Mothdal continued. "They didn't use technology. They used conversation. They talked to our people. They showed them things. They made them understand." "Understand what?" "That cooperation was more efficient than domination, that curiosity was more valuable than conquest, that building together was more satisfying than taking apart." Vexthul's implants were flashing rapidly now. "How many teams did we lose?" 14, over the course of 50 years. Every team we sent came back changed. Not captured, not converted. Changed. They retained their memories, their skills, their loyalty to the Empire, but they also gained something else." "What?" "Hope." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. "The final team included our best cultural psychologists, our most experienced xenobiologists, and a full squad of Krillian shock troops. They were equipped with the most advanced anti-manipulation technology in the galaxy." "What happened to them?" "They sent back a single message. We understand now. The humans aren't dangerous because they're predators. They're dangerous because they're gardeners." "Gardens?" "They take broken things and make them grow. They take dying systems and make them flourish. They take enemies and make them into allies. Not through force, through patience." Vexthul was backing away from the display. "And the quarantine?" "We told the Council that the Sol System was uninhabitable. Radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, hostile environment. We classified it as a dead zone and forbade all contact. For 800 years, humans have been developing in isolation, no outside interference, no galactic technology, no advanced resources, just time. And now? Now they've achieved faster-than-light travel on their own. They've developed artificial intelligence. They've created fusion reactors more efficient than ours. They've built weapons that could crack moons. But they seem peaceful. They are peaceful. That's what makes them terrifying. They have the capability to destroy civilizations, but they choose to build them instead. They have the power to dominate, but they prefer to cooperate. They have every reason to be conquerors, but they'd rather be gardeners. Vexil was now pressed against the far wall of the archive chamber. What do you recommend? We tell them the truth. All of it. The quarantine, the lost teams, the cover-up, everything. That's insane. They'll never trust us. Commander, we've been lying to them for 8 centuries. We've been lying to the Council for 8 centuries. We've been lying to ourselves for 8 centuries. And? Humans are very good at detecting lies. They've probably known the truth since the moment they walked into that conference room. They're just waiting for us to be honest about it. The display showed the current position of the human delegate's ship. It was exactly where it was supposed to be, following all traffic regulations, transmitting all required identification codes. They're not trying to escape, Mothard observed. They're not demanding explanations. They're not threatening retaliation. They're just waiting. For what? For us to stop being afraid of them and start being honest with them. Vex Tool's implants had gone completely dark. And if we can't, then we'll lose the 14 teams we sent to Earth 8 centuries ago, and we'll lose the chance to learn what they learned, and we'll lose the only species in the galaxy that might be able to teach us how to build something better than an empire. What makes you think they'd want to teach us? Because that's what gardeners do. They plant seeds and help them grow, even in the darkest soil. But that wasn't the shocking part. The corridor outside Conference Room 7 had become a no-man's land. Security personnel stood at both ends, maintaining what they called observation distance, but what everyone knew was just fear. Maya Rodriguez was still there, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her back against the wall. She'd finished her stretching exercises and was now doing something that looked like meditation. Her breathing was slow and controlled, her posture completely relaxed. She looked about as threatening as a houseplant. "Why were we scared of her?" asked Security Chief Krytol, a Rigelian with natural armor plating and claws that could cut through steel. "She's unarmed. She's sitting still. She's not even looking at us." "Because she doesn't need to look at us," replied his second-in-command, a vegan collective mind named Harmonic Convergence. "She knows exactly where we are." "How?" "Watch her ears." They watched. Maya's ears twitched slightly as a maintenance drone hummed past overhead. They tracked the sound without her head moving at all. "Auditory mapping," Harmonic Convergence explained. "She's building a 3-dimensional sound map of her environment. She knows the position, speed, and direction of every moving object within 50 meters. That's impossible for a single biological consciousness, but for a persistence predator. They need to track prey across vast distances using minimal sensory input." As if she'd heard them, Maya opened her eyes and looked directly at their concealed observation post. She smiled and waved. Both security officers jumped backward. "She can't see us," Quital whispered. "The optical camouflage is perfect." "She doesn't need to see us. She can hear our heartbeats." From this distance, humans have redundant sensory systems: vision, hearing, smell, electromagnetic sensitivity, pattern recognition, threat assessment. They process multiple data streams simultaneously to build predictive models of their environment. "You're saying she knows what we're going to do before we do it?" "I'm saying she's been tracking our conversation through micro-vibrations in the corridor walls, analyzing our stress pheromones through air circulation patterns, and calculating our probable responses based on our species' documented behavioral patterns." Krytel's claws extended involuntarily. "She's reading us?" "She's reading everything. The power fluctuations in the electrical systems, the maintenance schedules, the shift rotations, the emergency protocols. She's been sitting here for 3 hours, and she probably knows more about this station's operations than we do. It's not possible." "Watch!" Harmonic Convergence activated the station's intercom system. "Dr. Rodriguez, this is station security. Are you comfortable? Do you need anything?" Maya looked up at the nearest speaker. "I'm fine, thank you. Though you might want to check the atmospheric recycling unit in Section C." It's running about 15% below optimal efficiency. Both security officers stared at each other. How did she? Section C is 3 levels down and half a kilometer away. She can hear it struggling through the ventilation system, Harmonic Convergence said quietly. Probably diagnosed the problem from the harmonic frequency variations. Dr. Rodriguez, Critol said into the intercom. How did you know about the recycling unit? The air circulation patterns changed about an hour ago. Something's restricting flow in the lower levels, probably a clogged filter or a damaged intake valve. It's not dangerous, but it's making the environmental systems work harder than they need to. And you could tell that from sitting there. I could tell that from breathing. The air tastes different when the systems are stressed. Crital's claws were now fully extended. She can taste air quality variations? Humans have chemoreceptors in their nasal passages that can detect parts per billion concentrations of trace compounds. They can smell fear, identify diseases, track individuals across time and space. What else can they detect? Electromagnetic fields, gravitational variations, quantum fluctuations, temporal distortions. Their sensory range is far beyond anything we initially realized. But she's not doing anything with this information. She's not threatening us. She's just aware. Maya had closed her eyes again and returned to her meditation position, but now both security officers noticed that her head was tilted slightly, as if she were listening to something very far away. What's she listening to? Crystal whispered. The emergency session in Conference Room 7. The classified briefing in the Strategic Assessment Division. The coded communications between the Council and the Krillian Imperial Guard? She can't hear through soundproofed walls. She can hear through bone conduction, structural vibrations, and electromagnetic interference patterns. She's listening to the entire station. What is she? She's a human. And now we know why Earth was quarantined. Maya opened her eyes and looked directly at them again. This time she didn't smile, she just nodded. Very slightly, as if acknowledging something they'd said, even though they'd been whispering from inside a shielded observation post 50 meters away. She heard us, Crethel said. She's been hearing us the whole time. What do? We stop pretending we're observing her, and we start acknowledging that she's observing us. Maya stood up, brushed imaginary dust off her jumpsuit and walked toward the observation post. She stopped exactly 3 meters away, the optimal distance for conversation without triggering territorial responses. I know you're there, she said quietly, and I know you're scared, but I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt anyone. How do we know that? Cretal asked, his voice shaking slightly. Because I've been sitting here for 3 hours, and I haven't hurt anyone yet. Because I fixed your translation device instead of sabotaging it. Because I'm answering your questions instead of hiding information. But you could hurt us. I could also help you. That's what humans do. We make choices. And then the alarms started. The Strategic Combat Assessment Center was buried 3 levels below the main council chambers, behind enough armor plating to stop a supernova. It was here that the galaxy's military leaders came to plan wars, analyze threats, and sleep poorly afterward. General Crux, Supreme Commander of the Regellian Defense Force, stood before the main tactical display with the expression of someone who just discovered his entire reality was a simulation. Run it again, he ordered. Sir, we've run it 17 times. The results are consistent. Run it again. The holographic battlefield materialized around them. Earth hung in the center, blue and peaceful, surrounded by the combined fleets of 6 galactic powers, 2,000 ships, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. Scenario 1, announced the tactical AI. Direct assault on Earth. Objective, planetary conquest. The simulation began. The combined fleet moved into attack formation. Earth's defenses activated. What happened next defied every principle of space warfare. The human defense fleet was smaller, much smaller, 47 ships against 2,000, but they moved like a school of fish, each vessel perfectly coordinated with every other vessel. They didn't engage the galactic fleet directly. Instead, they used the attacker's own momentum against them. Ships were redirected into their own allies. Weapons were hacked and turned against their users. Supply lines were cut with surgical precision. Communication networks were infiltrated and flooded with false orders. Within 3 hours, the galactic fleet was destroying itself. Casualty report, General Crux said numbly. Combined galactic forces 97% destroyed or disabled. Human forces 8 ships damaged, 0 ships destroyed, 0 casualties. How? Humans don't fight like soldiers, they fight like scientists. They analyze the enemy's weaknesses, exploit system vulnerabilities, and use minimum force for maximum effect. Scenario 2, Crux ordered. Siege warfare cut off their resources. The simulation reset. This time the galactic fleet established a blockade around Earth. No ships in or out, no trade, no communication, no supplies. But the humans waited 6 months. Then they started launching something that looked like cargo containers toward the outer system. What are those? Asked the tactical AI. Unknown. They're not showing any weapons signatures. The containers reached the edge of the system and activated. They weren't weapons, they were factories. Automated manufacturing units that began harvesting asteroids, processing raw materials, and building ships. Self-replicating industrial systems, the AI explained. They're turning the entire outer system into a production facility. Within a year, Earth had a larger fleet than the galaxy had ever seen, all of it built from space debris. Scenario 3, Crux whispered. Psychological warfare. This time, the galactic fleet broadcast surrender demands and propaganda. They threatened Earth's population, demanded unconditional submission, and promised destruction if their terms weren't met. The humans responded by broadcasting their own signal. It was music. Music? General Crux stared at the display. They're playing music? Analysis indicates it's a form of mathematical communication. Complex harmonics, encoded data streams, recursive patterns that affect neural chemistry. What's it saying? It's saying, we know you're scared. We know you think we're monsters. We know you're just following orders. But we're not your enemies. We're your neighbors. Come home, there's always room at the table. The galactic fleet listened to the music for 3 days. Then, ship by ship, they began to defect. Final casualty report, the AI announced. Human casualties, 0. Galactic casualties, 0. Galactic fleet 100% converted to human alliance. Converted how? They realized they were fighting for the wrong side. General Crux stood in the silence of the tactical center, surrounded by the ghosts of simulated battles. His senior staff watched him with expressions of barely controlled panic. "Sir?" asked his second-in-command. "Your orders?" "There are no orders. There is no strategy. There is no defense against an enemy that turns your own weapons into tools of creation, your own soldiers into allies, and your own fears into hope. What do you recommend?" "I recommend we surrender." "Sir?" "Not to them. To the idea that we've been approaching this problem completely wrong. Humans aren't conquerors, they're not destroyers. They're not even warriors, despite being the most effective military force in the galaxy. Then what are they? They're teachers, and we've been failing their class for 800 years. General Crux removed his command insignia and set it on the tactical display. "I am submitting my resignation to the Council. I recommend that all military leaders do the same." "Sir, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. We've been training for the wrong war. We've been preparing for enemies who want to destroy us. But humans don't want to destroy us. They want to help us become better versions of ourselves. And if we refuse, then they'll wait. They'll keep building, keep growing, keep offering to help. They'll outlast us, outlive us, and outthink us. But they won't destroy us." "How do you know?" "Because they've had 800 years to prepare for this moment. They've had 800 years to plan our destruction, and instead they sent us a gardener. What happened next made galactic history, and not in a good way." The emergency council session had been relocated to the main assembly hall, not for space reasons, for psychological ones. The delegates needed to see Mayor Rodriguez in person, needed to understand exactly what they were dealing with. She sat alone at the center of the massive chamber, surrounded by 300 representatives from across the galaxy. No restraints, no weapons pointed at her, no guards, just one human in a jumpsuit looking perfectly comfortable in a room full of species that could have torn her apart without breaking a sweat. Dr. Rodriguez, the Quellen moderator began, her voice echoing in the vast space, we've discovered certain discrepancies in our historical records regarding Earth. You mean the 800-year cover-up? Maya asked conversationally. Yeah, I figured you'd find that eventually. You're not very good at keeping secrets. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. You knew? I've known since about 10 minutes after I arrived. Your archive security is pretty decent, but your personnel files are wide open. Commander Vex Thul's psychological evaluation after the Sol System incident makes for interesting reading. You hacked our systems. I didn't need to hack anything. You gave me access to your public networks when you handed me that translation device. Everything else was just following logical pathways. The Krillian delegate stood up. Are you saying you've been monitoring our communications this entire time? I'm saying I've been paying attention. That's what humans do. We notice things, we remember things, we connect things. What kind of things? Maya leaned back in her chair. Well, for instance, I noticed that your empire has been in decline for about 2 centuries. Population growth is negative, technological innovation has stagnated, and your military spending has increased by 400%, while your actual defense capabilities have decreased. That's classified information. It's basic pattern recognition. Your delegates are older than they should be. Your technology is more maintenance-heavy than it needs to be, and your military leaders are more paranoid than they would be if they were actually winning wars. The assembly fell silent. But here's the thing about persistence predators, Maya continued, standing up slowly. We don't just hunt animals, we hunt problems. We hunt solutions. We hunt understanding. She began walking, not toward any particular delegate, but in a wide circle around the center of the chamber. Several dozen species tracked her movement with expressions of barely controlled terror. When humans hunt, we don't just chase our prey until it gets tired. We chase it until it makes mistakes. We chase it until it reveals its weaknesses. We chase it until it shows us exactly how to catch it. What are you hunting? The Quellen moderator asked quietly. Right now, I'm hunting the reason why the most advanced civilization in galactic history is slowly collapsing under its own weight. We're not collapsing. You quarantined an entire species for 800 years because 14 of your people decided cooperation was more efficient than conquest. You've spent more resources on maintaining that lie than most civilizations spend on their entire space programs. You've built an empire based on fear, control, and the assumption that might makes right. Maya completed her circle and stopped directly in front of the main assembly podium. And it's killing you. Explain. You've created a system where strength is measured by the ability to dominate others, but domination requires constant energy expenditure. You have to maintain superiority over your subjects, which means you can never let them grow stronger, smarter, or more independent. That's how civilizations maintain stability. That's how civilizations stagnate and die. You've turned the entire galaxy into a zero-sum game where someone's success requires someone else's failure. But humans learned something a long time ago. What? The universe isn't zero-sum. Resources can be created, knowledge can be shared, strength can be multiplied through cooperation instead of diminished through competition. That's idealistic nonsense, is it? Your own records show that the 14 teams you sent to Earth didn't just survive contact with humans, they thrived. They became more productive, more creative, more effective than they'd ever been under Imperial command. Barely were compromised. They were optimized, and that's what scares you. Not that humans might conquer your empire, but that we might make it irrelevant. The chamber was so quiet that Maya could hear the ventilation systems humming in the walls. You see, that's the thing about persistence predators, she said, her voice carrying easily through the massive space. We don't stop. We don't give up. We don't accept impossible as an answer. We hunt until we find what we're looking for. And what are you looking for? A better way for everyone. Maya sat back down, folded her hands in her lap and smiled. The question is, are you going to help me find it, or are you going to keep running? The Andromedan delegate raised a trembling appendage. Dr. Rodriguez, what exactly do you propose? I propose we stop pretending this is a negotiation. Every combat implant in the room started glowing. This isn't a peace conference, Maya continued calmly. This isn't a first contact protocol. This isn't even a diplomatic meeting. This is an intervention. An intervention for what? For a galactic civilization that's forgotten how to grow. You've been the dominant power for so long that you've lost the ability to adapt, to learn, to change. You're like a predator that's become so specialized that it can only hunt one type of prey, and when that prey disappears, you starve, which is exactly what's happening to your empire. The Quellan moderator's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. You're suggesting we're extinct? I'm suggesting you're dying, slowly, quietly, but inevitably. And the worst part is, you know it. That's why you quarantined Earth. Not because we were dangerous to your empire, but because we represented everything your empire had forgotten how to be. Which is curious, adaptive, optimistic, growing. Maya stood up again, but this time she didn't pace. She just stood there, completely still, completely relaxed, while 300 of the galaxy's most powerful beings hung on her every word. So, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to teach you. All of you. I'm going to show you how humans solve problems, how we build things, how we make enemies into allies and obstacles into opportunities. And if we refuse, then you'll keep declining until someone else takes your place. Maybe the humans, maybe someone else. The universe doesn't care about your feelings or your traditions or your pride. It only cares about what works. That sounds like a threat. It sounds like evolution. The silence stretched for exactly 47 seconds. Maya counted them. Then the Krillian delegate asked the question that shattered everything. Dr. Rodriguez, who sent you here? Maya's smile faded for the first time since she'd entered the council chambers. I'm sorry? Who sent you to the Galactic Council? Earth doesn't have a unified government. Your species is divided into hundreds of nation-states with competing interests. Who chose you as their representative? Maya was very still for a very long time. No one sent me, she said finally. Then who do you represent? I represent the idea that someone should probably come see what you've been up to for the past 800 years. The chamber erupted. Delegates were shouting in 60 different languages, demanding explanations, calling for security, activating emergency protocols. Maya just sat there, waiting for them to calm down. You're not Earth's ambassador, the Quellan moderator said when the noise died down. No. You're not a government representative. No. You're not speaking for your species. I'm speaking for myself. And for the possibility that 2 civilizations might be able to find a way to coexist, without one of them having to dominate or destroy the other. But the formal invitation, the diplomatic credentials, I made all of that up. Your bureaucracy is really not that hard to navigate once you understand the underlying patterns. The realization hit the chamber like a physical force. They hadn't been negotiating with Earth's government. They hadn't been talking to humanity's chosen representative. They'd been talking to a single human who decided to drop by and see if she could help. You came here alone, the Andromedan delegate whispered. I came here hopeful. And then the alarms started. The alarms weren't coming from the council chambers. They were coming from everywhere else. Alert! Multiple unauthorized vessels detected in proximity to Council Station Alpha, the emergency broadcast system announced. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Maya Rodriguez sat in her chair, perfectly calm, while chaos erupted around her. Delegates were scrambling for emergency exits, security forces were mobilizing, and the Quellan moderator was frantically trying to establish communication with the station's defense grid. Dr. Rodriguez, the moderator called over the noise. Do you know anything about these ships? Probably, Maya said, checking something on her wrist device. They're right on time. On time for what? For the part where you realize I didn't come here alone. The main display activated, showing the space around the council station. 17 ships had appeared as if from nowhere, sleek, unfamiliar designs that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Those aren't human ships, the Krillian delegate said, his implants flashing rapidly. Our databases show no matching configurations. They're not in your databases because we built them last week, Maya replied. We've been watching this conversation through quantum entanglement transmitters. The folks back home thought you might need a visual aid. Visual aid for what? For understanding what happens when humans stop pretending to be civilized. The ships moved into formation around the station. Not threatening positions, supportive ones. Like a protective formation. You see, Maya continued, standing up as the alarms wailed, you've been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. You think we're predators because we're good at hunting, but that's not why we're apex predators. Then why? Because we're good at everything. Hunting is just what we do when we run out of other options. The display showed detailed scans of the human ships. The readings were impossible. Energy output levels that should have required massive fusion reactors were coming from vessels the size of shuttlecraft. Defensive capabilities that should have needed armor plating 3 meters thick were being generated by fields that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. How is this possible? The Andromedan delegate whispered. 800 years of uninterrupted development. While you were maintaining the status quo, we were improving everything. Physics, engineering, biology, mathematics, philosophy. We've been having conversations with reality that your species gave up on millennia ago. What kind of conversations? The kind where we ask why not instead of why. The kind where we assume problems have solutions instead of assuming solutions are impossible. Maya walked to the center of the chamber again, but this time every step seemed to carry weight beyond her physical mass. You want to know what an apex predator really is? It's not the species that's best at killing. It's the species that's best at surviving. And humans are very, very good at surviving. By conquest, by adaptation, by innovation, by refusing to accept that things have to stay the way they are. The ships outside were doing something that broke several fundamental laws of physics. They were folding space around themselves, creating pockets of altered reality where different rules applied. We don't hunt other species, Maya said, her voice cutting through the alarms. We hunt limitations, we hunt impossibilities. We hunt the word can't, and we kill it wherever we find it. And if we try to stop you, you can't. That's the point. You can't stop an idea whose time has come. You can't fight a species that treats every obstacle as a puzzle to be solved. You can't defeat enemies who would rather make you into allies. Then what do you want from us? Nothing. We want to give you something. What? Hope. The real kind. The kind that says tomorrow can be better than today if you're willing to work for it. The kind that says cooperation creates more value than competition destroys. The kind that says the universe is big enough for everyone to win. Maya sat back down, folded her hands and waited. The choice is yours, she said quietly. You can keep running your empire the way you always have, through fear, control, and the assumption that someone has to lose for someone else to win. Or you can try something new. What if we choose wrong? Then you'll learn from the mistake and try again. That's what humans do. That's what survivors do. The alarms stopped. The silence that followed was different from before. It felt like the moment before dawn. Doctor, Rodriguez, the Quellan moderator, said carefully, what happens next? That depends. Are you ready to stop being afraid of the future? Archive Keeper Mofdal materialized in the center of the chamber via emergency hologram, his 6 arms moving frantically across multiple data interfaces. I found the original quarantine order, he announced, his voice shaking. The real one. What does it say? The moderator asked. It says the quarantine wasn't to protect the galaxy from humans, it was to protect humans from the galaxy. Every delegate in the chamber turned to stare at the hologram. The original survey team's final report, Mofdal continued, recommended immediate quarantine not because humans were dangerous, but because they were innocent. Innocent of what? Of the galaxy's way of doing things. The team reported that humans had developed cooperation, creativity, and technological innovation without developing the corresponding capacity for large-scale cruelty, systematic oppression, or industrial-scale warfare. Maya was very still. The recommendation was to leave them alone until they either developed those capacities naturally or until the galaxy developed alternatives to them. Alternatives to what? To empire, to conquest, to the assumption that civilization requires someone to be in charge and everyone else to obey. And the lost teams. They weren't lost, they were volunteers. They asked to stay on Earth to study human social development and report back when humanity was ready for galactic contact. When would that be? Where they'd develop space travel, artificial intelligence, and fusion technology without developing planet-killing weapons, slave economies, or genocidal tendencies. The chamber was silent. They passed, Mofdal said quietly. 3 months ago they passed. Maya Rodriguez stood up for the last time and addressed the Galactic Council. I have a proposal, she said. What kind of proposal? The kind where everyone wins. Earth joins the galactic community as a full member. In exchange, we share our technological advances, our social innovations, and our approach to problem solving. And in return, you teach us about the galaxy, introduce us to other species, and help us avoid the mistakes you've made. What mistakes? The assumption that civilization requires hierarchy, the belief that resources are scarce, the idea that someone has to lose for someone else to win. The Quellan moderator looked around the chamber. All in favor? Every delegate raised their hand, tentacle, appendage, or equivalent. Motion carries. Dr. Rodriguez, welcome to the Galactic Council. Thank you. I resign. You what? I resign from my position as Earth's representative. I was never qualified for it anyway. Earth will send proper diplomatic representatives within the month. Then why did you come here? To plant a seed, to start a conversation, to prove that change is possible. Maya walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and one more thing. Those ships outside, they're not warships, they're colony ships. We're building new worlds for anyone who wants to try a different way of living. How many worlds? As many as it takes. She smiled one last time. The universe is big enough for everyone. And then she left, leaving the Galactic Council to wonder if they'd just witnessed the end of an era or the beginning of one. Outside, the 17 ships began to sing, a harmony of mathematical beauty that rewrote the fundamental equations of space-time itself. It sounded like hope. We were wrong about Earth,